Jen, we are so happy you're here. And, we've never met, although we keep seeing each other across rooms in this town, but it's so good to have a chance to get to know you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. And like I said before we started recording, I see you a lot, but I haven't actually gone up to you to say hi. So I'm really glad that we're meeting now.
We get to hug when we
I'm
see
so
each other.
excited that I got to introduce these two amazing people to each other.
You are a serial networker. You always know who is going to get along really well. So this is perfect.
Nice job. Nice
That's
job.
a good compliment.
It's a
Thank
great
you.
skill.
Yeah.
Okay, Jen, we like to start our conversations by getting back into the Wayback Machine and taking you back to high school and your senior year. And you're looking forward to life and you have a vision. Tell us a little bit about what you saw back then.
I was a very different person my senior year of high school. So senior year of high school, I was actually doing cyber school, which was crazy at that time. I remember
Yeah.
my friends being like, so are
What
you going to
what
fake
school?
school?
What did you say?
Cyber school. I did online
Cyber.
school, but it's because I was traveling the country racing BMX. I raced nationals every weekend, and so it was really hard to go to school in person and then travel on the weekends.
I was a professional athlete my senior year, so, I'll just throw that out there.
I'll just mention that. That's really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed it, and that's what brought me to Louisville to begin with. So I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, the snowiest city in America, shameless plug. And I ended up here because we have a world-class BMX track over at Tom Sawyer. And I would come down here, I don't know, probably once a year, starting when I was like 11 or 12 years old. And I actually didn't know Louisville existed outside of Tom Sawyer. I thought Louisville was Tom Sawyer, which I know you guys are probably like, okay, come on now. But that's where I came when I came down to Louisville.
And it's not even like downtown Louisville. It's like on
No.
the outside of Louisville.
Yeah,
So yeah.
It's like 25 minutes away from downtown Louisville. So I remember one time when we came down, we went to go visit Bellarmine. And then we went downtown for some reason, and I was like, there are tall buildings here with people. I just remember being blown away by the city of Louisville. And so I just kind of fell in love with the city and ended up moving down here for school and BMX racing.
So you went to Bellarmine?
I went to Bellarmine. Go Knights.
Wow. And did you BMX all through college?
I did. I didn't retire until I was like 22. BMX racing is a lot like gymnastics or sprinting. You peak when you're younger. And so I got to a point where I was like kind of going downhill and I didn't like not doing well at nationals. And I also got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to either go all in on this, right? And like go pro, really like double down on what I was doing for training and traveling, or I was going to be an adult and get a real job and go to business school. And so I chose the business school, be an adult route. And I miss racing a lot, but at 30, I have a healthy level of fear that I didn't have when I was a little bit younger. And so now, even like looking at my BMX bike in the garage, I'm like, I could never get on that thing again. Like
Really?
I'm such a scaredy cat. So
That doesn't seem like you at all.
I know, but I have like a lot of fear around it. And so even mountain biking, I go so slow when I mountain bike. Like I look at a tree and I'm like, I'm not gonna hit the tree. I'm not gonna hit the tree. Like I'm gonna go so slow. And now like for me, running.
You joked about coming here for therapy, but I really want to dig into that.
Yeah, I feel like there's
That's
some trauma
fascinating.
I might need to unpack here. But I had a lot of wrecks growing up, and now I'm like, oh, like I have a business to run, and if I get hurt, it's really expensive now. And before, my parents just paid for the ambulance rides and hospital bills.
Don't tell me about this. I have a kid that's getting into this, and so I don't need to know any. It's totally safe. It's better than the motorcycles.
She's exaggerating.
Yeah, exactly.
She's exaggerating.
I think people think the traveling is the really expensive part and the bikes are the expensive part. No, it's the hospital bills. If you have a kid who loves to jump and like do dangerous things on the BMX track, you better start stashing money aside because those hospital bills are crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
So we were all BMX at this point. Did
This
you
is
think
real
about entrepreneurship at all when you were in high school or college? Like where did business school come into the conversation? How did you go from daredevil to marketing genius?
Okay, that's a great question. Growing up, I always had these little side hustles. So I was the one selling cookies at garage sales or babysitting, or even in school, I was doing personal training to make some extra money on the side. And I even sold hair bows for a while. And I actually did really well at it. I sold
Did you
them on
make the hair bows, or
Yes,
you-
I made them myself,
Oh.
which is funny because I'm not at all crafty at this point in my life. Like I can't even draw a stick figure, honestly. but I was making hair bows and selling them, and I had my little business going. So yeah, I always was looking for a way to like make some extra money through these different side hustles, but I hadn't really considered entrepreneurship until I was working in corporate America. I was actually working in Dallas, Texas at the time at a pretty big tech company, and I dealt with sexual harassment from an executive. And I remember talking to my other girlfriends because I was looking around for different jobs. I'm like, I have to get out of the situation. I remember going to HR, and HR was like, well, this is a really bold accusation. You should be very careful how you proceed with it. And I was like, oh, HR isn't here to help me. They're here to protect the company. And it was like, ding, 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 light bulb moment. I need to look for something else. So I was talking to some girlfriends, and my girlfriends were like, oh, yeah, same thing happens at my company. And I was like, oh, maybe this is just a thing that everybody experiences. And how can I not experience this ever again? I'll just start my own business. And then I can pick and choose who I work with. So at that point, that's what I considered entrepreneurship. But I had never thought of it up until that point.
I think it is. I mean, I'm not saying the sexual harassment is the common story, although it is, of course, common. But I think that women for the last generation are just, a lot of us are just opting out. I mean, it wasn't for me, it wasn't sexual harassment, but it was, oh, I don't really want to put up with this. And if I change companies, I might just put up with it again in a different form.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're just like, I'm just going to build my own table. I'd rather just bet on me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny how so many different ways that people can come to this, and that might not be the most common story, but being like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a different path here, where I don't have to, where I can pick and choose.
Well, and this is completely really off topic in a way, but hearing you talk about sexual harassment like that, and then your friend saying, oh yeah, same thing, and the way that HR treated you, it makes me realize while there are so many lawsuits, you hear all these stories, and men, I feel like they feel often victimized, like this is rampant, it's out of control, women are making these accusations. How many of us just swallow and move on and just be like, I'm not going to sue. I'm just going to go find another job.
I don't think that there's a single woman that doesn't have a story. Like, I didn't even really realize that it was sexual harassment until later on. But like, I had a landlord at one of our first startups kiss me on the cheek more than once, even though I pulled away. One time it landed on my throat. And I don't think he thought it was sexual harassment, because one time it even happened in front of his wife, but I made it clear that I was uncomfortable with it, and it didn't stop.
I had a customer that, our largest client, and one of the guys that I worked with liked to kiss me on the mouth as a greeting. And so I learned to just always stand behind a chair, or I would say, I've got a cold. It was weird.
Yeah, yeah. Or even comments about like the way in which you looked, and looking back, it's like, that was probably inappropriate. Like, I don't know a woman who doesn't have that kind of story.
Oh, true.
At
Every
minor
woman, I
levels,
think,
at least.
yeah.
And then there's people who are experiencing much greater levels.
Yeah.
But I've not really ever heard of someone saying that that's been their impetus to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kept that buried for so long. I was really embarrassed that it happened to me. I thought it was something I did because people around me at work kept telling me, like, oh, it's the way you look, it's the way you dress, it's the way you talk. You're his type. And I'm like, I don't want to be his type. Like, I did
Bold
not ask to be his
accusation.
type.
Yeah.
And people just like watched it happen to me every single day. It was happening in front of like my whole department. And so I thought it was my fault for a really long time. I was embarrassed. And so when I started my business, I was like, oh, I just like wanted to be an entrepreneur. This is just what I wanted to do. Like in reality, I was like, I just needed to escape from the situation I was in. And so maybe a year or two into it, I finally started to tell my story when I like came to terms with it, and I was comfortable telling it, but I was really embarrassed about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
Oh, that's amazing.
Was it immediately a marketing thing that you started? Because I feel like you have several businesses. So what happened? You decided you were going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to build your own path to try to avoid this, because everywhere you looked, these things were happening. What happened next?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, it was just me. I was the team of one. And so I was doing the only thing I could do, which was consulting. There was no way for me to really do full service social media for people or PR influencer marketing, because I didn't have the money to hire people at this point. When I left corporate America, I had $3,000 to my name.
Yeah.
No money to do anything with. I was really like at like the bottom of the
Shoestring.
bottom. Yeah, I was like,
Bootstrap.
I got to do everything myself. And so I did. So it was a lot of consulting where I would create strategies and pass it off to my clients to implement. But it got to the point maybe like 6 to 12 months in where I had clients who said, well, can you do the work for me? Like, I don't want to pay for a strategy. I can't do anything with it. Can you implement it? And that's when I started to build on my team. And then we started to offer a lot more full service options like social media management, content creation, influencer marketing, and PR.
And was this in Kentucky?
Okay, good question. We actually didn't have any clients in Kentucky to begin with.
Were you still living in
I
Dallas?
was here.
You were
I was here in
but your
Louisville.
clients weren't here.
Yeah, I was here, but my clients were not here. And in fact, we still have very few clients here. I think we only have one client here at the moment, which is really interesting because half our team lives here. But it's been a lot easier for us to sign clients from other cities than it has been to sign clients here.
You really made your name. So tell us a little bit about Neat and who you are and where you are at now as a business. Because when we met, I thought PR. So how did that become the thing? And now where are you at?
Okay, great question. And I feel like it's changing too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'll say this, and I'm sure in 6 months from now, I'm going to look back and be like, well, that's like not right. Like now we're in a very different place. Like we're constantly growing and evolving and hiring new team members and offering additional services. So it's funny because we did a lot of marketing as I started to build out the team. It was really a lot of social media work in the beginning. And then we had clients who really wanted PR. And so my background isn't in media pitching. Like I am not, if you asked me to write a press release, I would look at you like you were insane. I don't know how to write a press release, but I knew that I could hire the right team members to write press releases or manage campaigns like that. And so we had clients asking for it. So we expanded our services and offered that to clients. And now 80% of our clients are in some sort of PR retainer with us. But it's funny because in the beginning, I was calling my company Neat Marketing. And then we got to a point where it was like, well, a lot of our clients are now PR clients. So what are we? Neat PR. And so we dropped the marketing and we've rebranded. And now we're just Neat the agency because we really do offer a lot. We offer PR, we offer marketing, we also offer creative work as well. We wanted to become a one-stop shop for our clients because the issue I was running into is I would talk to these bigger brands and they would say, hey, PR and marketing is great, but we actually need someone to update our website or we actually need a brand refresh. And we don't want to work with an agency that can't do all of it. And I was like, oh, we're literally missing out on business if we can't offer something like this. So I came back to, I can't do this, but I can hire the people who can do it. And so I really built out the team from there. So now we're officially a one-stop shop. So even if we can't do the thing, we can partner like with you, for example. We partnered up with you to help us with podcast management. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at today. We are a team of all women, all under the age of 35. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting dynamic for a business owner to do things they don't know how to do, to start doing things they don't know how to do, because I feel like it's a success strategy. When I opened my sign business, I didn't know anything about the sign business. I mean, I was a salesperson, really. I ran a business and I could sell. And when I went to the training class, I was a franchise, so they send me to training class. And, of course, they want to teach us how to run the printer, how to do this and how to do that. And I would just literally, like, nudge the guy next to me or the woman next to me in class and be like, can you just print two and give me one? And that way I can get through the training class. And they were like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, I'm not doing any of this. I'm not going to ever make a sign. And I've never made a sign. And it helped me not get stuck in the weeds of the business. You know, if you don't know how to write a press release, but you know how to recruit and train, then that's, you know, how to manage people. That's all you really need to know how to do. So it's a really interesting growth strategy and mechanism for how to work on your business instead of in your business. Is start a business and add things on that you don't know what to do. You don't know how to do them.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to figure out how to edit a podcast, I would, but I don't want to. We have audio engineers for that, right? That's not my role.
So your job is to secure the clients, grow the business, keep the cash flowing so that all these people can do the things that they want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is my strength. I am a people person. I'm kind of a yapper. It's a blessing and a curse. And so I'm really great at bringing clients in. I am great at picking out talent. I'm a people person. Am I good at executing the things? No, you don't want me doing that. I love when I talk to brands and they're like, so you're the one who's writing the press release and working with influencers. And I'm like, no, you trust me, you don't want me to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think
Exactly.
that has made you a little bit unique and why you've had so much growth. I mean, Neat's not actually been around that long, and you are already a pretty good sized team doing a good amount of revenue. I mean, I've seen lots of growth. So kind of talk about that journey from being solo to now having, you know, a full-time COO. I don't know exactly how many people are on your team, but it's growing significantly fast.
Yeah, there's 10 of us now, which is exciting and also scary because the more people you add into the mix, the more complicated things can get, the more emotions you're dealing with, the more problems you're trying to handle. And same with clients too. The more clients we add into the roster, it's just more people. And it's been a really interesting experience. You guys know, as entrepreneurs, it's up and down, up and down. As soon as you think things are great and things are running smoothly, something happens.
Wheels come off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wheels come off and you have to like rebuild the truck or the plane or whatever. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I would say the biggest struggle for me has been having really tough conversations and letting people go who aren't a good fit. But I've learned that if you hold on to people who aren't a good fit, not only are you doing your business a disservice, you're doing them a disservice because they're not thriving in that role. And so you have to cut the cord and cut it as quickly as you possibly can. On the flip side of that, you have to hire very slowly and make sure that you are finding people who are the right fit. And so the hiring and firing has definitely been a learning experience for me because I went from being the strategist and now I'm up here and I'm really just the people person. I'm hiring, firing, bringing in clients. And so yeah, having to manage and learn how to manage each person too, because everyone has a different personality. Some people respond really well to feedback. Other people don't respond super well to feedback. So you have to learn how to communicate with each person individually on the team to make sure that they're growing and thriving in their role. But yeah, lots of ups and downs. I think that on Instagram, you see all these entrepreneurs and they're showing off the private jets and the nice cars and like they don't actually show the messy behind the scenes because like even if it looks perfect from Instagram, it's not. Like things are always on fire.
Yeah, they never put on Instagram sobbing in the shower.
Exactly. And that happens all the time. Like I cry once a day.
Yeah.
I'll probably cry here because we're going through therapy right now.
Yeah.
You bring up a really great point about the skill of learning to have tough conversations. I think it's probably one of my strengths is learning, you know, I've learned how to do that, just whether it's a tough customer conversation or a tough employee conversation. And I loved your take on, you know, you're doing everyone a favor by getting an employee out. The other thing that I've always sort of used as another trick, mental trick to deal with these tough conversations is I think about my best employees and then I think about them being saddled with the bad employee or the lower performer. And I'm not taking care of my best performer if I make them work with someone that I know is not a good performer. So it's another reason, like, not only are you taking care of the person you're letting go because you're releasing them to find the perfect fit for them, but you're really helping out your high performers, you know? So congratulations, you're young, and that is a really powerful lesson to learn.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's funny because I still feel like I don't really know what I'm doing. And I don't know at what age I'm going to be like, now I have it. Everything is together. I know exactly what I'm doing.
I don't think
how
that
I'm doing it.
happens.
No, I think you get used to not knowing what you're doing. I think it's more like, I was describing it to someone as it's like riding a roller coaster. And the first time you ride it, you're like, this is terrifying. And then by the 20th time, you're like, oh, here's that scary part. And I'm just going to hold on and it'll be okay.
It'll be over. Yeah. 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 Because I feel the same way. And we're in the same range and same size business and whatnot, but I have enough people around me and enough businesses that, yeah, your immunity grows. Your ability to handle it grows, but it's still chaos. You still don't know what you're doing. You're just more confident in your ability that you will figure it out eventually, right?
Yeah. Some mornings I still wake up and go, oh,
Yeah.
what am I going to do about that?
I want to ask for our listeners, because I think you're talking about becoming a one-stop shop, and I want to educate. Most clients, most corporate clients, most even small business owners who are looking for services like yours, they put all of those things into one bucket. Marketing encompasses all of it. Marketing, PR, social media, podcasting even now gets thrown into that
Sponsorships.
bucket. Like all of it is in one ginormous bucket, and it's not all the same. So while you might provide all of that now, could you just quickly help everyone kind of mentally bucket these different items, and what is the difference in your mind between marketing and PR and some of the other things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to use a house analogy. So when you build a house, you have foundation, and the foundation in this circumstance is going to be branding. So you really need to know who you are, and you need to understand your story. And then along with that, you need the visual components like the colors and the fonts and the things like that. So like brand is the foundation, and then the walls are going to be marketing, right? So it's going to be social, paid ads, email marketing, SMS, things like that. And then the roof is going to be PR. And you can't do PR if you don't have the sturdy foundation and then the walls. And yeah, it all builds on top of one another. And so for PR, I wrote media pitching into PR. I put influencer marketing in that category. Things like podcasts, that would go under the PR category as well. Any circumstance where somebody might be first discovering you is really that PR kind of rooftop I'm talking about. So again, it's branding, foundation, and then walls, marketing, rooftop is going to be PR.
And just to add to that, because I think that's a really good analogy, which is, you shouldn't be coming to PR or even podcasting if you're looking for clients tomorrow. If you're looking for clients tomorrow, go spend your money on digital ads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's faster avenues, right? And until you have the funnels built and until you have the email captures built and all of the like walls, the PR thing, you could do it and it lands nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah. I always tell people, if you don't have a website, if you don't have a social media presence, PR is going to be so pointless, because where are you driving traffic back to? You have nothing to capture all of those eyeballs. And so that is really important to have that foundation first. You also made me think of something too, where it's not guaranteed. We can pitch thousands of journalists and not one single person can pick up the pitch. They might not be interested in the story that you're trying to share. And so that's really important too, to remember that when you pay for PR, you pay for marketing. It's not guaranteed sales. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to pay X amount and then I'm going to make X amount. And that's just not always true.
All right, I'm going to ask you kind of a question out of left field. So you're a people pleaser, right? You're great with people. What does a no in your world look like? What have you had to learn to say no to?
Oh, that's a really good question too. I am a people pleaser, but I do go to therapy and I'm working through it.
She's learning to not please people.
I'm learning to not be a people pleaser slowly but surely. But I would say something that I have said no to in the past would be clients who want something out of scope. That's a big thing we deal with in the industry, is clients want to like poke and prod and push, and like they really want stuff that they're not paying for. And I've had to constantly say, hey, I love that you want this. This is so exciting. We can do this for X amount of doll hairs. And then they go, oh, wait. Oh, okay. So this isn't included in my contract. People just don't like to read contracts. I realize people just sign off on the
They just put
bottom.
everything under marketing. And it's like, I'm paying you to do this. And you're like, no, you're paying me to do this.
Yeah. But I always try to reframe it from a negative to a positive. So instead of saying, no, we can't do that, I get really excited. I'm like, this is so awesome. I love that you're interested in this. Here's how we can do this. And here's what the cost will be. How does this sound? And so going about it that way, it sounds a lot more exciting and like we're willing to work with the person, versus being like, no, we can't do that. That's out of scope.
Yeah.
And even another situation, we have team members who ask for raises. And we might say, this is great. We're excited that you want to grow with us. Here's how we can get there together. And we're going to reevaluate this in 30 days. How does that sound? So technically it's a no right now, but we want to help you grow and get there. So it's like a sneaky no.
And did you have to learn that no through trial and error with your clients?
Yeah, I definitely had to learn through trial and error, because I'm a straight shooter. I guess maybe it's a northern thing I'm learning, because it doesn't really go over well here in Louisville. If I'm like a very direct communicator, people here are like, oh, can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
They'll go,
Hell
this,
yeah.
they go, this bitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm just like, I'm straight up. And so I've learned that it just doesn't always work well. And so sometimes you have to like fluff it up, make it a little bit more exciting and positive to get there. But definitely trial and error, because I have offended so many people. I've had to
for
go on
you.
apology tours of like, yes, I know I said that, but I like didn't mean that. Like, here's what I actually meant. So yeah, trial and error.
Yeah, I think of you as a people person, but I don't necessarily think of you as a people pleaser. And I could be wrong in that perception, but you do seem to have good boundaries with clients. And in fact, I've heard you say that one of your earliest mistakes was actually trying to charge people too much money. So talk a little bit like of finding that path and like the fact that you came in hot at a like an hourly rate that people were like, this girl is crazy.
This bitch.
This bitch. Yeah, I'm a pretty confident person.
No.
And so
BMXer. It's a BMXer thing.
Let me tell you, I was semi-pro in this sport earlier. No, keep going.
I grew up in a household where my parents are like, they were always like, you're the best, you're so great, sweetie. And so that just carried over into adulthood. And so when I was first coming up with my packages and pricing, I way overpriced myself, like to the point where I was charging the same price as like a top tier attorney. And I remember sharing my prices with brands thinking like, oh, I'm so worth this dollar amount. And then having brands come back and be like, oh, like, okay, this is pretty far out of budget. Do you happen to have any case studies? I didn't have any case studies. I just thought they were going to believe me. And I thought they were going to be like, oh yeah, this girl like maybe went to business school and like she has that corporate experience. Like she's worth X amount of dollars. And I had to learn this lesson of, oh, I keep taking sales calls again and again and people are telling me I'm too expensive. Maybe there's something to this. And so I had to kind of backtrack and lower my rates so I could get more clients in the door, prove myself, build up some case studies and some testimonials, and then I could raise my prices to that top tier attorney price that I really wanted.
So you said you started with a few $1,000s in the bank. How else have you had to finance the growth of your company? What other tools have you used? And
I've used begging before. I've like begged and pleaded with clients. I've been like, please work with me, please. That has really worked. I saw some clients that way.
So really you've built your business purely on your cash flow of the company.
Yeah, I did not. In the beginning, I really had nothing. So, and truly, I didn't have payroll to run. It was just me. So I wasn't paying myself or anybody else for probably 6 to 8 months or so. And then slowly but surely, I brought on a VA and like, then I brought on a social media manager and I could pay people because I had money in the bank at that point. Every penny I made from the business, I kept in the business and I kept building from there. More recently, like earlier this year, we did take a line of credit finally. And that was a learning experience, which I will never do again. That's a story for a different day. But
is it a story for a different day?
Is it a story for today? I don't know. You tell me. I don't know what the time is.
Yeah,
But
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
so earlier this year, we ran into a couple of issues. We went into the year not super strong in like the pipeline. And so,
Which has happened to everyone, especially when you
Yes.
talk about marketing in January, like
Yeah.
that. That's not,
Pipeline.
it was like very, very scary. And we also had clients who were saying that they were going to renew. And so we were like, okay, this isn't great, but we're still going to have that cash flow because we have clients verbally like letting us know that they're going to stay with us. So we're like, okay, we'll be okay. It'll work. We're going to break even in Q1. It's going to be fine. And then those clients didn't renew. And then we had a couple of clients just not pay us. They just decided to not pay tens of thousands, maybe not tens of thousands, but at least like 10K of invoices.
shocking.
And so we went into a place where we were like, oh no, like we were not at all prepared for this to happen. And so we had to take an SOS line of credit with a 62% interest rate.
Goodness.
The gasp from you. It was so high. Lesson learned.
Call me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be calling you next time.
Yeah.
And so we have since tried to refinance it, which it has not been successful. They have said, oh, you haven't had the line of credit long enough to refinance it and bring it down to a new rate.
Was this at a regular bank?
No, it was like an SOS, like,
Like one of those emergency funders.
yeah, emergency
Those
kind of.
predatory.
Yes.
Predatory funders.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's how we were able to keep people employed and make payroll.
Well,
and
no,
I
it's
stopped
a
paying
hard-
myself during that time too.
But it's a hard place. I mean, I think it's a
Yeah.
real place. I'm glad that you shared it and are being
Thank
vulnerable
you for sharing
because
that.
I know a lot of people that this has happened to, a lot of business owners, and they don't want to share that kind of moment, and yet it's happened to many people. And you get in this place where you think it's all going to work out, and so you don't want to fire people because you're going to turn around and need those exact same people back, and you don't want to lose that institutional knowledge. But you're having a cash flow moment, yeah. And there are like lots of lending things, but if you have to do it real fast, then and they're constantly. I mean, I know that Stripe is our like payment processor. And they're constantly trying to give me money, but the price of it is too high.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So I think I just want to hit on this because I think it's such an important lesson for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs especially who are getting started. And I was lucky because my dad mentored me about banking because he was in business for so long. And I remember when I first got started and we had our first really big sale client, and I needed operating cash, but I didn't have enough because the order was so big, even though I got a deposit. I just need to have more operating cash. And so I was talking to my dad and he said, well, you got to get a line of credit, which we'd already had. And, he told me up front, get a line of credit, even if you don't use it, even if you don't feel like you need it, get a line of credit. And he said, this was my favorite. He was like, you use it and you walk in the bank and you find your banker, you make a bank, you find a banker, build a relationship with your banker face to face, and you pay down that line of credit, even if you didn't need to. Even if you just said, I'm going to take $10,000 and put it in my checking account.
Turn around and do it.
And I'm going to turn around in 3 weeks. I'm going to walk in there with a check for $10,000 and be like excited paying off my line of credit. He said, if the bank sees you using it and you pay a little bit of interest and they just see you using it, if you don't need it, it's there when you do need it.
Oh, that's such good advice. I've never even been given that advice of just like having it and then paying it back.
Yes, flex. It's like working out. You got to flex that credit muscle.
Same way as like I got a Discover credit card that had like a $300 limit just to build the credit.
Yes, it's
like
the same in business. And, always be working toward your next level with your banker. So for me, I remember I had to put my house up on collateral on our business when we opened to get the first loan. And my goal was always to get it off the house and have it on the company. And so I constantly was running at the bank, like, it's time for us to take my house off. You don't need to. I had this much profit. Last 5 years, I've had this much growth. And eventually I got it. But those banks are not going to come to you and make these offers to you. You really have to build
Pursue
a relationship and wrestle it from them.
Yeah, that was a really big mistake I made looking back. I should have opened up a line of credit years ago. And I just didn't think anything of it because we never needed it.
Never needed it.
And then, of
and
course,
you'd operated wholly profitable.
exactly.
Yeah.
We were always profitable. And then, of course, 5 years in, shit hits the fan and we don't have time to go to the bank and like go through the whole 8-week process.
Yes.
So yeah, looking back, oof.
Well, good job.
Well,
good job.
it happens to
It happens.
It happens to most of us at some point. Maybe not exactly that scenario or another, but Resonate has had those moments. And if you don't have that access to a line of credit or a person who can be the line of credit or whatever, it's like you end up with something that is more predatory, that is on a credit card, that isn't. And then you're having to like kind of claw back out of that.
Get a banker, everyone. Get a banker. Take them to lunch. Schmooze them. Like build that relationship.
Yeah. So you've been building a business. You had a moment that was like, oh shit. And now you're back to flowing and going. This year, you took a big new leap in business. So tell us about your journey to acquisition.
Well, you were such a big part of this.
Yeah, this is,
I want to hear this.
yeah.
Okay, so I had Ellie on my own podcast almost 2 years ago at this point, and I was interviewing her about
I think it was
business
before
buying.
I had Renegade, the podcast.
Yeah, it was
even.
before.
Yeah.
And I remember having like a 2-part episode where I was just asking you all these questions about buying and selling businesses. And after that point, I was like, wait a second, I could buy a business. Like I just like had this light bulb moment. And I really want to build a company that is worth 40 or $50 million. And I want to sell it one day. But I realized I wasn't going to get there with just neat. I mean, maybe I could, but it's going to take a really long time and a lot of massive clients to get there. And so I was like, oh, I could just buy other businesses and build up my little portfolio and sell that one day. And that all came from a conversation with you on my own podcast. So thank you for that. Like, you're the reason
course.
why I'm
Look
doing what
at
I'm doing
you.
today. I appreciate you. I owe you my left kidney. Whenever
No,
you're
you
ready,
don't. No,
you can
you're
cash
good.
in, baby.
No, we're here to help each other in this community. Other people have helped me. You're good. We're good.
Okay, so
I'm
no
glad that it
kidneys.
sparked a thought, though, of like, how can I grow my business. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge light bulb moment. And actually, I had so many people DM me after that episode too. And they were like, wait a second, this is a thing we can do. And I'm like, I guess so. Ellie says we can do it, so we can do it. And so from that point on, I was really thinking about strategically, what could I acquire? What would make sense for me? And so for a while, I was looking at other agencies. There was one that I got very close to buying, and it ended up not working out in the spring of this year. And there was a photography studio that we went to quite often for our own clients. And I saw that one day the studio was selling all of its furniture. And so I went down to buy some pieces. I talked to the owners and I was like, what's going on? Why are you selling all of your furniture? And they had mentioned that they were going to shut down the studio and move to Mexico. And I was like, don't shut it down. Let me just buy it off of you, thinking they would never say yes. I was like, these people are going to think I'm insane. And they actually said yes. They were like, this is great. Let's have a conversation. And it worked out. It's crazy because the timeline went so fast from that initial point where I walked in and said, hey, let me buy your business to actually signing the purchase agreement. It was only 8 weeks. It went by really, really fast. And now I have this beautiful space downtown on Main Street. It's 4,000 square feet in a building that was built in the 1800s.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an event space, photography studio, and so far, so good. I really like it.
You were able in that moment to pick up a lease agreement that you could not have gotten without having purchased. Like that alone probably made that purchase worth it because it was under what I would call maybe like under market value on the lease part. And it was just like a strategic, you were already using the space.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what all kind of came in your deal, because it was a fast, small deal. So kind of talk about like in the sense of the, it wasn't a multi-million purchase. It was something that kind of moved fast and dirty, but because you wanted some specific assets off of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you called it a micro business, and I'd never heard that term before. And I was like, that's cute, a little micro business. I want one of those. And so with that deal, I got the entire list of clients, so 350 clients and their information. I got all of their social media, the website, and I got all of the equipment and all of the furniture within the studio. Now, I didn't buy the building because they didn't own the building, so technically I'm leasing the building for the next 2 years, and we'll see what happens after that.
But you also got their social media.
Yeah,
and a couple
I got
other
their
things,
social media. I got basically everything with the business except for like, obviously, like I don't own the space. I'm just leasing the space. I took the lease over. But yeah, it was a really interesting acquisition. It was very different than like the last deal I had kind of gone through. And after this, I would definitely buy more micro businesses. It just went very smoothly, and they didn't have debt or anything scary like that. There were no loans. It was very clean. And yeah, so far so good. But we were really looking at like what makes sense, and we had used a studio, and so it made sense to buy something we were already using. Now we don't have to pay for a studio when we need it for our clients.
Plus, you're adding a new revenue.
Plus, I'm adding a new revenue stream, and so yeah, I'd like to make more acquisitions. So next, I think I'd really like to look at an agency again, maybe a creative agency, because I want to build out that part of me even more than we already have, or maybe even some sort of tech platform, because we use a lot of tech in the business.
Nice.
Something that's like strategic adjacent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe tell me about this. It feels like your BMX experience has helped inform your style of entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah. I definitely am open to a certain level of risk. And with BMX racing, it's so risky. You're like throwing your body over dirt jumps, not knowing if you're going to break your head open or not. And
You're really helping this for me with my children.
Yeah. I think
am
you should
so
try
sorry.
soccer.
Well, sometimes you make it around the track without falling, and it's all great.
God.
Sometimes, fingers crossed. I remember my mom going to races, and she would like close her eyes and yell at us to slow down. All the other parents would be screaming like, "Go faster!" She'd be like, "Slow down."
I'm not a person to say slow down, so like I'm like either all in.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but keep going, keep going.
Anyways, yeah, with BMX racing, there's so much risk, and going into business, I was like, well, I'm not going to break my body open. What's the worst that could happen? I lose money. I'll figure it out. I'm the type of person who's always like, I will figure it out. Regardless of what happens, I'll figure it out. I've always figured it out up until this point, so why wouldn't that continue to happen?
Why would this be any different? And I like that idea of like, you faced a lot of fear of bodily harm, and so business is not as scary. as bodily harm.
Yeah, exactly.
So it really prepared you well. And you seem to really like the excitement of business, that adrenaline of your next jump.
Yeah,
So
this is my new adrenaline, I guess.
so you're adrenaline junkie, and you're gonna look for more acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And I see obviously you're looking at acquisitions in your space,
Mm-hmm.
but have you thought about businesses adjacent, a little bit adjacent to that? Like I think of event planning.
Oh, yeah. I could be
or
open to something like
stuff
that.
like that.
If the numbers make sense, I could be
You're
sold.
just in that growth mindset, growth oriented.
Yeah.
Business ownership rather than being the doer.
Yep.
And I think that is kind of a theme that I'm hearing, right? Like you didn't want to make your signs. I didn't want to edit audio. You weren't trying to make the
She's not trying to
press
write
release.
PR.
I'm seeing a theme here, which is like you didn't want to make signs. I didn't want to edit audio. You weren't trying to write your press releases. It's really the business and the growth and how you problem solve through that growth that is the thing. So whether that be event planning or a creative loft space or another agency, you're open, but you've got a mindset for growing and pushing and adventuring into new types of businesses.
100%. Yeah. I think I had told you this before, but I don't want to buy a business unless I think I can 3X it. And so I'm looking for businesses that have potential.
Yeah. Maybe it's just an owner who is ready to be done, or an owner who doesn't know how to 3X it, kind of thing. Well, it's a great message to hit home for business owners, especially who are aspiring and getting going. Don't be afraid to get into something you aren't an expert per se in, but you can always find and train and find the expertise. But and I think there are some people who want to be the expert. You know, there are people who want to do the thing that they are selling. So it's kind of a great thing to be asking yourself as an entrepreneur coming in, what kind of business owner do I want to be? I don't want a $40 million business, honestly. I don't. I mean, you know, my business is complex enough as it is. It scratches the itch I have. And I see a lot of my friends who are super ambitious with their sign companies, and they want to, you know, do huge things. But I kind of like going home at 2 p.m, and I like not answering a phone, and you know what I mean? Like
That's fair.
But
you
it
know,
fits your life. And that's, I think, the whole point is like deciding what you want. And there's not a right or a wrong answer. It could be a micro business. It could be a huge business. I do have an opinion, though, that I want to make sure that I say for the audience, which is I think micro businesses are a huge opportunity if you already own a business. I actually don't think you should buy a micro business if it's your first acquisition. And the reason I feel that way is because micro businesses often take more work than they're going to put off. But if you already have a team, systems and processes in place, you can offset that because you already had a director of operations that could help with some of those things. When it's your first one, it's going to be an add-on to whatever you do as your full-time work. And so it's like you're adding an expensive side hustle. Just make the side hustle. Does that, you know, like, and so if you have the infrastructure, they're perfect for that 3Xing. They're perfect for additions to something that's already built. But if it's your first thing, I almost argue don't go too small.
go with something that can sustain you and
Like when
generate cash flow. And
I needed my first acquisition to take my salary, and I needed it to take our health insurance. And so I wanted it to be no less than 5 employees, and it needed to make enough revenue that it could pay me a pretty decent salary instantly.
Yeah.
And so like that actually just pushed the price point up. And it's like, well, you had to pay more for that. Yeah, but I only ended up buying part of it. And honestly, it means it could service its loan. And
right.
like
It pays for itself.
Correct. Like,
the right
there's
business.
a risk
You're
of
buying
too
a business
small.
that will pay the bill.
Right. There's
for
a risk
itself.
of too small unless you already own a business. And then I changed my tune. And I thought that this would be awesome. And it has been. So I'm really glad that it worked out.
Thank you. Me too. And you were so helpful through all of it. I remember just like calling Ellie, texting Ellie, being like, what do you think about this? Can I send you the numbers? Like, help me work this out. And so this wouldn't have been possible without you.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Look at you. Look at you making shit happen. All right. All those entrepreneurs out there who are thinking about some scary leap, some scary dirt jump in their future that they could crash and burn, what advice do you have for them?
I would say if you have the ability to take the leap, do it. For me, it made sense. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I don't have kids. I didn't have a house at the time. And so I was like, what is the worst that could possibly happen? I ended up back in corporate America at some point working for someone else. And so for me, it was the perfect time to just try it. So if you're young, do it. If you fail, that's okay. You're going to learn so much in the process of failing. I actually learn a lot more when I fail versus when I win. And so there's never going to be a better time. Like, I think people think like, I'm going to wait for the right time to go and be an entrepreneur. There's never going to be a right time ever. And there's so many ways to be an entrepreneur. You can have a side hustle. You can buy a business. You can start a business. There's so many different ways to do it. So if you can be an entrepreneur, do it. You won't regret it.
That's awesome. Good
I
advice.
love it. I love it. Great advice.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for being here. How do people get a hold of you if they want to work with you, if they want to, either rent the studio or work with you as an agency? Where do we find you?
So you can show up on my doorstep, and I'm just kidding. I'm not going to give away my address. No, you can find me on Instagram. Our agency is Neat the Agency. So I believe we're Neat_the Agency on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jen Hartman. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can book space at the studio if you go to our website, thewaftcreativestudio.com. And I think that's about it. I don't answer my phone, so don't text or call me.
That's true. I know for a fact. No, I'm just kidding.
Nice.
Neither do I, so it goes both ways. It's fine. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your authentic story. And there's so much to be learned. So I'm so excited to keep seeing where your business goes.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be friends now.
Yeah, I'm excited.